Hello, friends. This is Dave Horowitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Yes, that's the thing, .com. And today is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, where everyone is supposed to go shopping. I think I'm going to make dill pickles. You know, I've been into fermenting lately. Fermenting is fabulous. I've been made sauerkraut and cortito, and I'm trying to find some place where I can get pickling cucumbers, because they're not all that easy to find sometimes unless you grow your own. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. Damn it, because it's Black Friday. I feel like that's like a movement from Pierrot Lunaire. You know, black moths covered the moon. It's Black Friday. Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about here? Oh, another movie. A film from that wonderful series, Dvořák's Prophecy, that was the brainchild of Joseph Horowitz on Naxos. And it's this one, the last in the series, actually. There were 6. And we've talked about Ives, and we've talked about, what's the other one we talked about just recently? Let's see, we did Ives, and we did Bernard Herrmann, which was totally marvelous. And now we're going to do Lou Harrison. The other 3 were the original one, the one about Dvorak and his experience in America, and his prophecy that American music would be based on the music of indigenous peoples and African Americans. And then there are also films on Gershwin and Copeland, which interested me less, quite frankly. I don't know if I'm going to deal with them. But this really interested me because we do not talk enough about Lou Harrison, who was amazing. I mean, the whole point of this series is to try and create an alternate narrative of the history of classical music in America and make a case for accepting that narrative and start listening to that music more and valuing it more. Because, as you know, Americans crap all over their own music. They have no interest in anything that comes from American composers. None, zero, zippo, practically none anyway. I mean, there were cult things. I mean, he should have done a thing on minimalism, I mean, for sure, because it's a major current and it's an American current. And there are some other things, but I mean, he had 6 films. It's enough already, right? I just think that Horowitz, and not because we're related, we're not. So I mean, we were in the old country probably. But let me just say, it's not a name thing. It's a smart thing. He's really right. I mean, we know how much great American music there are and how little we get to hear of it. Fortunately, much of it's been recorded. I mean, thank God, or else we would never know anything. And that's a tragedy. It's absolutely a national scandal, a disgrace. I mean, it's appalling. It's shocking. And this series of films is a welcome restorative, but it also tells us how difficult it's going to be to try and make the case. There's a moment here where Dennis Russell Davies is talking about programming the Lou Harrison Piano Concerto, which he says gets a rapturous reception every time it's performed. And he loves the work, and audiences love the work, but he can't get orchestras to do it. And he said, and that's also true of the vast corpus of American classical music by people like Hansen and Piston and Rieger and Creston and, you know, all these people who wrote just terrific music. And audiences don't care, maybe because they don't know, or maybe because, as we've talked about recently, they're just indoctrinated in that sclerotic canon of classical pieces, which is all they have time for. I mean, I get it. I mean, people have limited time and they pay good money to go see a concert. They want to see something that they know. But it's so odd, isn't it, in the classical music world? Because, yeah, sure, they want to hear the things that they know are certified classics. People don't feel that way about going to the movies. You don't only go to see movies that you know. You go to see the new ones that you don't know. And it's just, there's something out of whack there. There really is. People should have some curiosity, and it should be possible, as I think I've demonstrated in my fabulous concert program series, which is ongoing, and hundreds of programs using all kinds of unusual music and showing how you can mix it up with more familiar works or put together interesting programs. And if you promote them correctly, people will come. They do. It's a failure of the institutional mindset. It's not anything inherently difficult about the music itself, or off, or dismissive on the part of audiences. I mean, when I was doing my community orchestra, when I was playing percussion and was head of the repertoire, we did all kinds of unusual repertoire. We did Martineau symphonies, we did Frank Bridge, we did Hamilton Hardy's Irish Symphony, we did the Vaughan Williams symphonies, we did all kinds of interesting stuff. We did the premiere of George Lloyd's Fifth, or one of the premieres, to put it that way. The truth of the matter is, I mean, they were free concerts. The average audience age was like 107, but people came and they loved it. To get out and hear glorious symphonic music. Doesn't matter who the composer was. It didn't matter at all. They just enjoyed the experience. And people do, but you have to make it worth their while, and you have to make it appealing, and you have to, and if the audience age is up there and you're not getting young audiences, young listeners, it's like, I see my video, To Hell with Young People. Well, too bad. Play for the audience that wants to hear it, not for the audience that couldn't give a damn, right? Anyway, so here we are with Lou Harrison. That's me just, blathering on. Lou Harrison, if you didn't know, was an absolutely amazing composer who was the icon of world music, or East-West fusion music. He was well-versed in music for Balinese gamelan. He studied it. He performed it. He built his own American version made out of junk, made out of things like, compressed air canisters and brake drums and wash tubs. And he built up beautiful percussion ensembles and wrote glorious works for them. The iconic pieces here is his Concerto for Violin and Percussion, which uses all kinds of found objects. It is remarkable. And then there's the Piano Concerto and a lot of other things along the way. Joseph Horowitz talks first about the history of gamelan music in Western musical culture, beginning with the Paris Exhibition of 1889 or thereabouts, when Debussy discovered gamelan music and then later wrote works like, Pagodas and The Moon Descends Over the Temple That Was, and all that stuff, all of his gamelan-inspired music, and then all the other composers, Colin McPhee with Tabu Tabuhan and Benjamin Britten, and it was a thing. It was the one world music that was accepted almost wholesale into the realm of American classical music, partly due to the emancipation of percussion instruments more generally, which happened in the 1920s, especially under the aegis of composers like Henry Cowell, who was one of Lou Harrison's teachers and who also taught John Cage. Cowell is another composer who we desperately need to get a grip on. He was a genius, an extraordinary, open-minded person whose style is indefinable, really. He did everything. And so, to a certain extent, did Harrison. Harrison studied with Schoenberg. Let's not forget, in California. I mean, he was a very well-trained, all-around musician. His favorite composers, this film points out, were Handel and Brahms. But he wrote music for gamelan, and maybe in a Brahmsian way, which is one of the points that they make here. The unfortunate part of this, it's not their fault, it's not anything bad in the film, it's that they have to deal with wokeosity and wokeism and the whole current bullshit in musicology about cultural appropriation, whether it's legitimate for an American composer to absorb or use or evoke the music of that other culture in an American context. Of course, they have some handy Indonesian people saying, gee, it sounds great, it's fine with me, it's absolutely terrific. He was really serious. They have to say that Harrison was serious, that his absorption of gamelan was not superficial, that it was intrinsic to his being and his musical expressive. I don't give a damn if it's as superficial as a toilet paper commercial. Everybody has the right to use everything, period, exclamation point, without apology. And this business that we have nowadays in academia about what is legitimate and illegitimate because it may be borrowed from somewhere else and somehow reused. And the act of doing that is inherently disrespectful. That makes my blood boil. It really does. I find that one of the most pernicious, revolting, disgusting concepts ever to hit academia, which is full of pernicious, revolting, and disgusting concepts. Don't get me wrong. It's just outrageous. Composers and creative artists have to create. And if they need to borrow stuff to create, then let him borrow. Ives borrowed everything he got his hands on, right? You know, American folk tunes and popular tunes and all that stuff. And the fact that he was American lets him borrow. But if an Indonesian had borrowed, he would have been illegitimate and wrong to borrow Protestant church hymns in his music. I mean, come on. I mean, please be serious about it. When Kapustin started writing his jazz-influenced music, I mean, we all listened to it. We go, whoa, wow, isn't that fabulous? The guy's Russian. He's a Russian. He's a Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish guy, and he's doing this jazz stuff. And do we think it's fabulous? We should be flattered that great artists find inspiration in all kinds of cultures and places and materials. And that's what this tells us, basically. But it also tells us the sad story about how American academia and the institutionalized American musical culture will question the integrity of what someone like George Harrison, who was one of the most remarkable men in all of 20th century music, one of the nicest guys in the world, and who was just, you know, in love with the act of being a musician of the world. And he happened to have been born in Oregon, I think. You know, to question that on whatever philosophical basis is so cheap and irritating. The fact that they have to spend time talking about this, because the hope behind this series is that some people, maybe at some major cultural institutions, will see these and they have to sugar the pill. It doesn't require sugaring. The music is self-evidently great, self-evidently wonderful. It justifies its own existence by its mastery, its approachability, its sensitivity, its expressive depth. I mean, we don't need these people to tell us what is legitimate and what isn't. And the people who listen to them are morons. So let's just make that clear and go and listen to Lou Harrison and watch this excellent video with really, really fabulous topic, Lou Harrison and Cultural Fusion, a new narrative for American classical music. We desperately need one, and Joseph Horowitz has given us one. It may not be the only one, but it's a valid one, and it's a good one, and it's one that will greatly enrich our lives. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.